Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Aloha, everybody. Happy Monday. It's Sunday. Don't skip ahead, Mark. You've done that too many times. Okay, well, anyway, happy Sunday, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope all of our friends here in the U.S. had a happy Thanksgiving. This being part of Thanksgiving weekend, I know a lot of you still have friends and family visiting, and hope everybody had a good time. Hope there were no arguments at the dinner table and things of that nature. So I've never understood that. This is the time to be friendly and happy and just family. Oh well, anyhow, this too shall pass. We'll get through it. Today, talking with one of my channel members about 3D carving, there were some questions about the different machining limits that are available in both the 3D roughing and the 3D finishing toolpath. So I figured, it's more than just that channel member that needs to know this information. So I figured I'd go ahead and get into it. And we will in just a couple of seconds. But first, I want to give a shout out I want to thank and say hello to my friend Steve over at harneilmedia.com. Now, I mentioned Steve at the beginning of every one of these live streams because A, he's a friend of mine. And I couldn't handle the website without him. Steve sponsors my website over at marklindsaycnc.com. And if you go take a look at that website, you'll see the face of what he does when he does it. But what you don't see is everything he does behind the scenes. Websites are dynamic. When you go to a website, you see the face. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just something that happens. And there is one guy handling all of that behind the scenes, and that's Steve at Harneil Media. There's a lot of updates to keep track of. There's a lot of things plugins that don't support one another or that want to fight or start a conflict with whatever you have put up there. Steve takes care of all of that behind the scenes, and it's pretty much a thankless job because people don't see it. I see it, and I see it every day. And I want to say thank you to Steve for taking care of all that stuff. He does it without question. I don't have to get a hold of him. I don't have to talk to him about anything unless I want to do something new with the website. He just does it. And I don't know how he does everything he does. But I wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you, Steve, for everything you do for my website. And if you are thinking about a website, if you're thinking about putting your products or services out there to the public at large without paying commissions, without paying listing fees, you got to pay to list something, then you got to pay a commission if you sell it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, when folks are looking at your item, you've got your competition being advertised over here on the side. Well, if you want to eliminate all that stuff, eliminate all the middlemen, and just handle it all yourself, there's no better way to do it than with a website that's dedicated to your products, your services. And the only person I'm ever going to recommend for that is going to be Steve over at Harneil Media. Not only for everything he does, like I described behind the scenes, but just because I can count on the level of service I'm going to get for Steve, because Steve is Harneil Media. When you correspond or talk with Harneil Media, you're talking with Steve. You're not talking to some nameless, faceless person in a call center sitting in a cubicle in a corporate environment that you're never going to talk to again. You're talking to Steve, and he is responsive. He's going to handle it, whatever you'd like. So do yourself a favor if you're even toying with the idea of a website. Get over to harneilmedia.com. Click that contact us link and shoot Steve a message. Tell him what you want, what you'd like to see, what you're looking for, what you need help with, and he'll talk with you. He'll work with you. He does what he does in a very professional manner. He does it very well, and he's very competitively priced. And after a few months, you'll wonder how he does it so cheap. So you'll find a link to harneilmedia.com in every live stream and every video on this channel. More than 700 strong. 700 live streams and videos. That's how much I believe in him. So get over to harneomedia.com, click the contact us link. You'll be happy you did. Thank you again, Steve, for everything you do here in the front end and especially everything you do in the back end. I truly appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, let's get into a little bit of not so much 3D modeling, but what we do with the 3D model after we have it created. We want to machine it. We want to carve it. So I'm going to jump over here into VCarve Pro to show you that this is not an Aspire thing. Now I've got a simple project here. I'm on a 12 by 12 piece of material, and I have two components here. I've got a flat round circle that I'm going to use for this cribbage board. It has a nice rounded edge here. And if I jump into the properties of this flat round circle, I can see that it's a 1/2 inch thick. Then I can, on another level, I have my horse. And my horse is a 1/4 inch thick. So I can tell right now my total model thickness with this and the horse is 3/4 of an inch. So we're fine there. We're well within normal, what we would consider normal project range. Now I say that because I know that most material, when I go to my hardwood supplier, most of the material I'm going to buy is 4/4 stock, and it's going to be a little bit thicker than 3/4 of an inch. And in fact, I measured my material for this project, and it is 7/8 of an inch thick, so 0.875. So with my model thickness being 3/4 of an inch, I know it's going to fit perfectly on this piece of material with no issues. So I have my project designed. If we jump over into the 3D view, we can see what that looks like on the 3D side. I'm more than happy with that. Now, the reason, go back to the components layer here, or tab here. The reason I put this cantering Arabian, in this case, on its own level is because I'm going to save this as a template file to be able to do more cribbage boards later on. And later on, I may not want this Arabian here. If I jump over into my clip art, I am going to jump back into animals. On the next one, I might want the eagle head here. Or I might want a gorilla for some reason, or just a horse's head. So I can change my art here at will. And that's why I've put it on its own layer, or excuse me, on its own level, so I can change this without worrying about anything going on down here. Something that we need to remember always about VCarve Pro and Aspire is it builds the model from the bottom up. So my first component is the flat round circle, this here. My next component is the Arabian. So it's going to model the flat round circle first, then the horse. I got my combine mode set to add so that it's adding the horse to the top of this flat round circle. Another thing to keep in mind, because I don't need one for this model, is that if I add, go back to the design plane, if I add a zero plane, the zero plane becomes part of the model. And that's going to be important in just a minute, and I'll show you why. So I have my model prepared out here. Now I want to machine it. I'm going to go back to the 2D view for a second. And I have all of my vectors out here for my cribbage board. I'm not going to worry about those vectors in this demonstration. We're just going to focus on the 3D modeling aspects. So you won't see these vectors machined is what I'm getting at. So let's jump over to the toolpath side, because now we want to machine 3D roughing and 3D finishing for this project. The first thing we're going to do, absolutely, the first thing we're going to do always is go over here into the material setup. And this is important, especially when we're 3D modeling, because as it sits right now, the software knows I have this flat round disc model, and it knows that I have this Arabian. Now I'm going to jump back here for just a second, and I'm going to put us both in here. If we take, be right back. Let me grab us thing here. This is pretty large, but you'll see what I mean. Now, as it sits right now, it knows we have a model, and it knows how thick that model is. But if we flip our material over this way and think this way, right now the software doesn't know where in the thickness of this material to place that model. It doesn't know if we want that horse up here starting from the surface, or if we want the bottom of that disc, that flat round disc, to start from the bottom of our material. We don't know that yet. It has no clue. So now we have to place it. And that is done over here. That's done over here. Back to Spotlight. In Material Setup. So we need to go into Material Setup and take a look. We know that the thickness of our material is 7/8. That's fine. Our XY datum is in the center. That's fine. Our Z0 is the material surface. That's fine. But it's right here, the model position in the material. That's where we tell the software where this model is. Right now, it's set to where the top of my horse is the top surface of the material. But if I drag this slider down, I've now told it that I want the bottom of that disc to be the bottom surface of the material. So that's one extreme and the other. But we can place this anywhere we want within the model thickness. If we want a little bit below and a little bit above, we can do that. Now, what I do is I take advantage of this. For this model, I want to use as much of the thickness as I can, but I don't want the top surface of my material to be the top surface of my model. It's very possible to end up with flat spots. So if I have a real high point right here, or right here on this horse's rump, that could end up being a flat spot. So I'll put a slight gap above the model, and I usually go with 0.01. That's a very, very thin layer here. What this is going to do is it's going to make the toolpath carve through this top surface so that I don't end up with a flat spot here. It's going to carve all the contours of the model. Apropos of absolutely nothing whatsoever, we're going to do a little bit of trivia here. Everybody says that no word rhymes with purple. This area of the horse is known as the kerple, starting with the C. So now you know when somebody says nothing rhymes with purple, say, really? Have you ever heard of the horse's kerple? Google it. You'll see what I mean. Anyhow, back to what we're doing here. So I have my gap above the model. I've got my model placed where I want. All of this information is fine. I'm going to click OK. Now we're going to get into the machining of the roughing, 3D roughing toolpath. Now, what we're going to focus on is right here. We're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill to machine this, the roughing toolpath. Okay. Michael Mazalik, bless you, Michael, just added a very, very pertinent note. What we're working with here is known as a composite model. It's a composite of 2 separate components. What Michael says is just a note. One component makes a model, and many components also makes a model. 100% absolute. Absolute. Jump back over here for just a second. Into the components. As I said before, the software models from the bottom up. It's taking these 2 components, in this case, and those 2 components combined together create the model. This is a separate model, and this is a separate model, or they can be. But over here, they're components. When we get over here, now they're a model. The components stacked together create the model. I'll get to you in a minute, 8th Center. More trivia. Anyhow, so we've got our end mill selected. Now we're going to select our machining limit boundary. Now there's 4 choices here. We have the model boundary, and if we look at the diagram, that means when we machine this, we calculate this, it's only going to cut the model. We can just barely see a blue line. That means it's going to machine just the model. Now, I'm not going to change anything else. Let's calculate that and see what that means. So we're in the 3D preview, and I'm going to preview it. And as it previews, you can see what it's carving, and more importantly at this point, what it's leaving behind. While it's previewing, 8th Center, you being over in the UK, you should know this. In Wales, there is a place called Blorange, B-L-O-R-A-N-G-E. Blorange rhymes with orange. And it is an English word. Okay, so there we have the preview of our roughing toolpath. But it is also carved, again, to the model boundary. It's not taking away, go back into the preview, it's not taking away any material out here on our 4 corners. Now this can be handy if you are, let's say, screwing the project down, screwing the material down to the spoil board. You can put some screws out here to secure it down, and you know it's not going to carve into them. All right, let's reset our preview. Get out of our preview window, and let's go back into our toolpath. So that is using the model boundary. Now in this case, it works out for us because, again, we can put screws out here and not have to worry about it. The bit isn't going to run into them. The next option we have is machine to the material boundary. Now, if you want to machine this and leave this flat area behind out here for some reason, maybe you have some other artwork you want to add out here, or you have, I don't know, it's got to fit down into a case or something. You're building a box to this side, and this is going to sit inside that box. So you have a lid to flip it open and play with the cribbage board, and then close that lid to carry it off somewhere. The project is going to determine what we're using over here. So if we machine this to the material boundary rather than the model boundary, we can come down here and we calculate this. Now we can see what it's going to carve away here. It's going to carve away all of the material down to the model thickness. Our model thickness in this case being 3/4 of an inch. It's going to leave that 1/8 of an inch behind, so we'll have an 1/8 of an inch thick base. And you'll see what I mean as this carries on. So now we know that there's a word that rhymes with purple. We know there's a word that rhymes with orange. Man, is there a word that rhymes with silver? Yes, there's a word that rhymes with silver, and that word is chilver, which is a female lamb, a ewe lamb, if you will. All right, here we go. The preview is finished. And now we see that it's left behind this 1/8 of an inch thick piece, but it has carved the entire surface of our material. Again, this comes in handy, like, for instance, if this piece has to fit inside something else, but we want it machined to where this is raised. So we've machined away all of this out here down to the same level as our base model. And down, that is 3/4 of an inch down from the surface. Okay. Now, there are several things to consider if you're going to do this. And J. Scotia has a great example. You might want to leave some material so you can zero other tools off of the material. Absolutely. If you are machining from the material surface, now where do you set your Z0 for your tapered ball nose to do your finish toolpath? Well, there are several ways around that. If you have another piece of scrap from this same piece, or if you have run this through a planer or a drum sander, run something else through so that you have another piece over here to set your Z0 to. Another piece of material that's the same thickness as what you're using out here. So that's one thing that you're going to have to take into consideration. I've got all this machined away. Now what do I use to zero my tool with? Another option is we're setting our Z0 to the material surface. If we're going to do something like this, we might want to consider zeroing our tool off of the machine bed. That way, we're not relying on anything out here. Our machine bed's not going to change. So we could Z0 off the spoil board and we'll be fine. But if we're going to use the material surface, we got to think about what are we going to set our Z0 to? So, okay. So that is the material surface, machining to the limits of the material. Another thing to consider beyond where we're going to set our Z0 to is how are we going to fasten this to the spoil board? We have machined all the way out to the limits of the material. So any clamps we have out here, they're going to get hit. Any screws or locating dowels that we have out here, they're going to get hit as well. Our options are either vacuum table or double-sided tape or painter's tape and CA glue, or some way of holding this from the bottom that won't interfere with what we have out here. So that's a few things that we have to consider. Okay, I'm going to reset the preview, and we're going to jump into the other options that we have. The next is a selected vector. Now, here we turn on vectors in our 3D view, and I'm going to rock this up here. We can select a vector outline. There we go. And we can machine to that. Now, in this case, machining to this selected vector is pretty much the same as machining to the model boundary. But it doesn't have to be this vector. I could draw a vector around the horse and use that as my vector. Or I could offset a vector way out here. In fact, I'll do that right now. That's a good point. Let's bring up the design tab here, and I'm going to offset this vector out, and I'm going to go outwards ½ inch. So 0.5. I'm going to select that new one. So I've got this vector out here. I still have plenty of room to use screws if I need to. And but I've still got this area cleared out so that my tapered ball nose can get down in here and machine all the way to the bottom without me worrying about either my collet or my collet nut hitting this out here. So let's do that. Let's use this vector. We're going to machine to the selected vector, this one here, and we're going to calculate. And now we can see that 3D roughing is going to machine all the way out here. I still have plenty of room for mounting screws, but I've also cleared out an area so my collet or my collet nut won't bottom out against this unmachined material. And we'll go ahead and we'll preview this one. So while we're waiting on this to bounce through, another word they say that there's no rhyme for is the word month. There's no rhyme for the word month. Well, yes, there is. One of the Hindu texts is called the Grunth, Grunth, the Grunth, which rhymes with month. So we've eliminated month, silver, orange, and purple. They all have a word in the English language that rhymes. What are we left with? Don't know. We'll talk about it in a minute. So there we can see what the machining limit has done if we select a vector. I've cleared out this area out here. I've still left plenty of room for mounting screws out here. But now I have this big open area out here so my tapered ball nose can come down and machine all of this area down here. But it's clear and I don't have to worry about the collet or the collet nut hitting this while it's trying to machine out here. So that is 3 of the 4 available options we have for machining limits. Let's go ahead and reset the preview, and I'm going to go for the last one here. We'll close our preview window out. And this is one that doesn't get talked about quite very much. Rich says, okay, Mark, I didn't think you were old enough to have worked with Mother Goose. Not quite. Not quite old enough to have worked with Mother Goose. And let's not even talk about the Grimm brothers. I mean, the less said about them, the better. Anyway, this one doesn't get talked about a lot. And that is the selected level. Now, something that we need to remember is if we select this option, work to the selected level, we now have to select a level that we're going to machine to. When you click the drop down level, I have two levels. I'm going to select level 1, and I'll show you what that does. The selected level being level 1, if I come back over here into my Components tab and I look, I have two levels. So this selection only works when you have multiple levels. Okay, just know that. But I can use this option if I want to just machine this flat round disc without the horse. I don't want to machine that. I just want to preview it and check and make sure that what I'm doing out here with this flat round circle actually works. So I've got my selected level being level 1, and now I'm going to calculate it. And now we see what it's going to machine. Let me go ahead and preview that. Nobody's come up with another word that doesn't have a rhyme. Okay, well, that's fine. I think we've settled that then. But now, if you want to make friends and influence people, you got some trivia to throw at them. So, okay. Stubbs' mom says, I was told in a Facebook group that a roughing pass saves no time and in fact added to the carving time. Is that right? Yes. You use a roughing toolpath not to save time, because it won't save time. It will add carving time. You add a roughing pass to save the bit that you're going to use for the finishing pass. Stubbs' mom goes on to say, I thought roughing took out material and saved passes so the tapered ball nose didn't have to. What a roughing pass does is it makes things easier for your tapered ball nose. Okay? And I'll show you why in a second when we get into the finishing tool path. But they are absolutely right. It does not save time. It, in fact, does add carving time. But again, what it does is it saves the tool that you're going to be using on your finishing tool path. So we can take a look at this now, and we can see that it carved when I went for, just jump back in here for a second, when I went to the selected level, it carved the whole thing. Because remember, it models from the bottom up. Let me close this, go back into the preview. I'm going to reset the preview. I'm going to go close the preview again, go back into roughing. But now I'm going to change. I'm going to go to level 2. So it's going to machine level 2 only. It's going to machine level 2 only. So we'll calculate that. Now we see what it's going to machine. It's just going to, boom, boom, boom. It's just roughing the horse. It did not do the entire model. So now I can check and make sure that it's going to rough, shoot over here, and we're going to look at my readouts down here. I'm at negative 0.2. That's what it's roughing down to. This model thickness here, the horse, is 1/4 inch thick. I've left a machining allowance on my roughing tool path, so it's not machining all the way down to that flat round circle. It's left the material behind that I wanted it to leave behind. And the tapered ball nose is going to carve this. Marie says, at Acrylowood Design says, did you say you left 0.01 over the top of the model in the position of the model? Yes, ma'am, I did. Yes, I did. Okay. OC Laser says, but aren't you removing more material at a faster speed versus a tapered ball nose bit? Yes, I am. I'm using a 1/4 inch end mill, which I can run pretty fast. And let's talk about it. Close. Roughing. And I've got a boundary offset of a 1/4 inch, which is the diameter of the end mill. And I've left a machining allowance of 0.04. Okay? What that means is, let me close this. Let's go back into the preview. And remember, look at my readouts down here. I'm at 0.02. I left that machining allowance of 0.04, meaning I've got 0.04 of the material that has not been carved. It wants the tapered, I want the tapered ball nose to make that carve all the way down to the bottom. So if we take that 0.04 and we add it to the 0.2 down here, we have 0.24. Now also, as Marie just mentioned, I left 0.01 over the top of my model. Let's add that to that 0.24, and there you have the 1/4 inch model thickness of my component over here. So by using, let me reset the preview. Well, no, I'm not going to reset the preview. By machining down to level 2, using these settings, back into the preview, there we go. I've machined away most of the material here that's going to be my horse without going through all of the, without waiting for the preview to do the whole flat round circle. I don't need to look at that. I just want to look at what's going to involve my horse. Now to finish this thought, let me go ahead and we'll get into a 3D finishing toolpath. I'm going to use an 1/8 inch ball nose and a 1/16 inch tapered ball nose. This is one of those situations, Stubbs Mom, where, like I said, the roughing is there to save the bit. When you look at a 1/16 inch tapered ball nose, that is a tiny, tiny tip. It can't plunge real deep and start cutting because at the end of the day, it's a 1/16 inch bit. It needs this pretty well cleared out so that this tiny bit can get in and start carving without breaking the tip off. That's where the roughing toolpath comes in. It's not there to save time. It's there to save the tip of this bit. So I'm going to go to the selected level here, and I'm going to machine level 2. I'm just going to machine the horse. That's it. So I will come down here and I'm going to do a raster strategy with a raster angle of 45 degrees, and we'll calculate this. And now we see all it's going to do is carve the horse. I made a mistake. I need to go back into the finishing toolpath. I need to set a boundary offset that's equal to the biggest bit I have here, being 1/8 of an inch. So I'll go 0.125 for a boundary offset. It means it's going to carve out here 1/8 of an inch away from this model. Now, Maria's asking, why are the tools listed together up above? Is it because of the 2 levels being machined together? It's no. What it is, I've selected 2 bits to carve this model. The 1/8 inch ball nose I'm using because it's faster. It's going to run faster than this 1/16 of an inch bit. So I've selected this to machine away most of this material. The 1/16 of an inch tapered ball nose is just going to come in and do those little details that this 1/8 inch bit can't get to. That's the whole reason behind using these 2. Now, I don't have to use this 1/16 of an inch tapered ball nose. It may be just fine. And I don't have to use this 1/8 inch ball nose. I can let the 1/16 inch ball nose do all of this. Okay? I did it this way to, again, save this tiny bit. The less work it has to do, the easier on the bit it is. So all the tools will have the same boundary offset. In this case, all the tools in this toolpath will have this same boundary offset. That may be a different boundary offset from the roughing toolpath, and we'll see that in just a minute. So everything else looks good. I'm going to calculate it. All right. And we see that it's made 2 toolpaths. Again, we have one for the 1/8 inch bit. The 1/8 inch bit is going to carve all this. Then the 1/16 inch bit is going to come in and just do the details. That saves my 16th inch bit, makes it easy on the bit. So let's uncheck that, and we're going to do our finish clear with the 1/8 inch bit first. And it's going to come in and it's going to machine the horse. We have no flat spots up here because of that 0.10. Now if I zoom in and I put my cursor down here, and let's look at my readouts down here. I'm at 0.2599. All right. So I've got my 1/4 inch horse thickness, but I've also got that 0.01. Come on, right there. You can see on my readout down below, I'm at 0.26. 0.25 model thickness plus 0.01 gap above the model. 0.25 plus 0.01 is 0.26. So I've got my model thickness plus that 0.01. Now we look at the boundary offset that Marie was talking about. The 1/8 inch bit and the 1/16 inch bit both have carved out here 1/8 of an inch because that was my largest bit in the finishing toolpath. But if we look, we've got this ledge here at 0.2 and this ledge again down here at 0.06. That means that 16th inch tapered ball nose, when it was carving out here, the most it had to cut was 0.06. That's a heck of a lot easier on the bit than 0.25. Again, we use the roughing toolpath not to save time, but to save the tip of the smallest bit. So if the smallest bit I was going to use was that 1/8 inch bit, that's a lot more robust than that 1/16 inch bit, I probably wouldn't have to do a roughing toolpath. Probably. It depends on what I'm cutting. If I'm cutting something like pine, it's pretty soft, or basswood or poplar. It's pretty soft wood. The 1/8 bit would definitely be okay in that. You get into hard maples, it's kind of sketchy. If you're cutting purple heart, forget it. That purple heart is dense, hard material. Hickory, pecan, something like that is real hard material. You want a roughing toolpath to save those smaller tapered ball nose bits. So again, it's more a case of what the project is, what the material is, and what you're going to have to do in order to, number one, mount the material and hold it in place, how far you're cutting, and what you're going to be using to set your Z0. So there are a lot of things to consider when you get into both roughing and finishing toolpaths when it's time to start carving. And the project is going to decide what you do. Now, let me, I'll just close this. And I'm going to calculate the same toolpath, the finishing toolpath, without roughing. I'm not going to rough it at all. And I'm going to go to, let's go to the material boundary. Now this is a finishing toolpath. I'm going to use a raster strategy with a 1/16 inch tapered ball nose as my finish bit. And I'm going to remove that 1/8 inch tapered ball, 1/8 inch ball nose. So now my 1/16 of an inch tapered ball nose is going to take care of the entire finishing toolpath, and we're going to use the material boundary. I am going to continue to use a boundary offset of 1/8 of an inch because when it comes out here to do these edges, I want it to go past that. So I know it's machining all the way out here. Okay? And I'm going to calculate this toolpath. It's going to take it a couple of minutes because I have a lot going on. So we're calculating everything. And there we go. Okay. So now this is, the parallax is bad on this. Let's look at it straight from the top. Okay. This 1/16 of an inch bit is going to come out here and start doing everything from this corner. Now let's preview it. And I'm going to stop it. Because by this time, with that little bitty bit trying to carve this all at once, it's already broken the tip of that bit off. I no longer have a 1/16 of an inch tapered ball nose. That 1/16 of an inch is not going to survive taking off 3/4 of an inch of material in one pass. It's just too much. This is why we use, you know what, I never reset the preview after that. Now, this is the one we're going to use. There we go. Now we're going to preview that shaboom. And now I'm going to stop it. Again, that 1/16 of an inch diameter bit is not going to survive cutting 3/4 of an inch of material. It just isn't. That's because we're asking it to do way too much. So this is why we use a roughing toolpath. Not to save time, but to save our tiny bits. Now let's go ahead and let's add that 1/8 inch ball nose. There we are, 1/8 inch tapered ball nose, select, and I want to put that up on top. Now we'll calculate. This should go a little bit faster because it's a bigger bit. It's still questionable as to whether or not the 1/8 inch bit is going to handle all this. My reason for showing this is because when you get into 3D modeling and you're carving 3D toolpaths, the software does not respect the pass depth of the bit, no matter what you've set that to. The 3D toolpath does not respect that pass depth. It's just going to start cutting. So we're going to go here with the clearance pass first. And we're going to stop it. The 1/8 inch bit will probably survive this carve. It depends. It may survive it. It may not. Again, this is where the roughing toolpath comes in. Let me reset the preview. We're going to go into the 3D roughing toolpath, and we're going to go to the material boundary. We'll calculate. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to drive a point home. We're going to preview this toolpath and we're going to see it goes level by level and machines away most of this material to be able to save our bits. Now, let's stop this for a second here. I don't really need to preview. I think I've made my point. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at what this does to machining times. And we're going to come over here to a toolpath summary. We're going to look at this. Because of the feeds and speeds I have set for this bit, these are unreasonable speeds. We're looking at 10 hours to do this. The roughing, 4 hours and 30 minutes. That's not going to be a realistic number, okay? That's something to do with the settings I have for these bits for the demonstration purposes. But let's remove the 3D roughing toolpath. In this case, yeah, it cut it in half. But now you have a choice to make. What is your priority? Is time your priority? Or is the finished product your priority? Or is saving a potentially expensive bit your priority? It's 100% up to you. You have to decide what your priority is. Do you add, in this case, 4.5 hours of machine time? Or is that machine time worth swapping out bits? Again, the choice is yours. You don't have to use the 3D roughing toolpath, but that's why it's there, to save this teeny tiny tapered ball nose. So, and I do know people who don't ever use a roughing toolpath. But today's demonstration is less about when you would use a roughing toolpath versus what the different machine limit boundaries do and what they demonstrate. Again, you have the model boundary where it's just going to machine away the model. Remember, the minute you add a zero plane, it is part of the model. So you may only want to carve this part of the model, but if you have a zero plane, all this out here is now part of the model. It's going to carve all this away. And if you have screws out here and you're starting in this corner, it may get real exciting real quick when that 1/4 inch end mill starts cutting through the screws out here. So just know that when you add a zero plane, it becomes a part of the model. The material boundary, that's self-explanatory. It's going to carve away the entire surface of the material and show you what's left behind. The selected vector, again, we turn on our vectors and we close this, undraw. Our selected vector, we can have it machine all the way out here to make room to allow our tapered ball nose to carve this and still leave mounting screws available. And then the selected level, depending on what we want to preview. Do we want to preview the whole thing, starting from the bottom up, or do we want to preview one of the upper levels? Now, none of these things, especially when it comes to the selected level or the selected vector, have to be permanent. We can use this just to preview what's going to happen. But when it comes time to actually carve the entire project, we can switch up and go with a model boundary or a selected vector. This one here is, generally speaking, just used to check certain things to make sure. I want to make sure the horse is carving correctly before I wait for it to do the entire model. I don't have to wait on it to carve all this away out here. I can just check on the horse and make sure that's carving okay. So, having that taken care of, let's go with selected vector, and let's use this vector here. And we're going to calculate. That's for our roughing. Then we're going to go into our finishing toolpath. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's delete that. I meant to do this. We're going to use the selected vector, turn on my vectors in the 3D view. Select that one, we're good. And that's what we're going to do, shaboom. Okay, now I'm going to go into my 3D finishing, and I'm going to use the selected vector. Again, turn on the vectors. Let's undraw the others. God, I should have undrawn. Turn you off, shut up. Now, again, we're going to go with selected vector, which is this one. Boundary offset of 1/8 of an inch. And we'll calculate that. And it's going to create a toolpath for my 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. And yes, so we'll undraw this. Now I'm just going to preview all the toolpaths. All right, let's see here. Using a millimeter collet with an imperial-sized bit, that can cause problems. Big time. Big time. If you have a imperial collet, say it's a 1/4 inch, 0.25, okay? That's the size of shank that collet has been designed to grip, 0.25. If you have a 6mm diameter bit, which is close, but that's 0.23 and some change. You may not think that 0.02 between the 1/4 inch and the 6mm is that big of a deal. But when it comes to a bit spinning at 14, 16, 18, 20,000 RPM, it's a huge deal. Bit slippage is going to happen. It may not happen at once. It may not happen at first, but bit slippage is going to happen. This is a major, major problem that can be solved just by getting some metric collets. I have a couple of 6mm bits. I bought 6mm collets for just that situation. Do not attempt to use a bit with a metric shank in an imperial collet. Having said that, I also have bits that are 1/4 inch shank, but the diameter, the cutting diameter of the bit is metric. That's perfectly fine. We're talking about shank diameter versus cutting diameter. Always match up your imperial shank diameters with imperial collets and your metric shank diameters with metric collets. I didn't go the other way because, simply put, you are not going to fit a 0.25 inch bit into a 6mm collet. If you got a big enough hammer, you can do anything once. But you're not going to get that sucker out if you get it in there to begin with. So you've just basically destroyed a 6mm collet. And it's a shame because collets are not expensive. If you normally use imperial tools and you buy bits with a metric shank diameter, buy the proper collet. Don't risk it. It's not worth it. If $20 is the breaking point, if spending $20 on collets is not acceptable to you, then you have a bigger problem. It's not the machine and it's not the collet. It's you being tight. And I say that as a Scot. All right, here we go. So what we've done is we've gone for that vector, again, to give me room so that my teeny tiny 16th bit, if it needs to, can come down here. And I don't have to worry about my collet or collet nut hitting this thick material out here. Okay? I didn't reset before we ran this. There we go. So it's not hitting this out here. Now, Michael Mazalik brings up a good point. In this case, I could also use a boundary offset instead of the vector. I sure could. And what he means by that is I didn't have to, come on, there we go. I didn't have to create this vector out here. I could use model boundary and just increased my boundary offset to say a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. Then it would go beyond, it would offset past the boundary of the model and carved out here. So either one would work. But it is, if you've watched Michael's videos at all, you know that Michael makes an excellent point with all of his videos. There is more than one way to do the same thing. There are usually, how do you say it, Michael? There are usually 3 ways to accomplish the same goal. And that's one example of it. You don't have to draw another vector. You can just use a boundary offset. But knowing what each of these options are is the important point. There will be times you'll use the model boundary. There will be times you'll use the material boundary. There will be times you use a selected vector. There may be times you use a selected level. The selected level, again, is generally used to preview certain portions of your model, your composite model, without waiting to do everything. And again, it only works if you have more than one level. So, the channel member who asked me about this is out here in the chat. I hope that answered your questions. And you are very welcome, Michael. For those of you who don't know Michael Mazalik, the man is an absolute artist. He's a wizard with this software. He's been using it longer than I have. But he's also one of the busiest people I know. Do yourself a favor. If you look down in the description of all of these live streams, if you look in the description, you'll find permanently a link to Michael Mazalik's YouTube channel. Get over there, take a look. Do yourself a favor. Binge watch him. The man is an absolute wizard. And he's a wizard of finding 3 ways of doing just about any project. In fact, I don't think you found a project you couldn't do 3 different ways, or a process you couldn't do 3 different ways. Rich, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's why I do this, because I've been that guy who had all the questions. And in many ways, I still am. Steve being right on top of it, as he usually is. There's a link to Michael's YouTube channel. But again, if you go down to, if you go down into the description of any of these live streams, you'll see permanently linked a link to Michael's YouTube channel. Do yourself a favor, get over there and subscribe. Because from what I gather, Michael may have a lot more coming up. Let's see here. Maria's asking, in what instance do we use a 0 offset boundary? Okay, let's take a look at that. We're talking about the boundary offset in the roughing or finishing, okay? Let's say for the roughing toolpath, I have a boundary offset that's equal to the diameter of my bit. That is, the reason for the boundary offset is because when the, for instance, right here on this edge, I want the bit to come out beyond the model, just to clear material out of there. okay, to again make it easier on the tiny bits. If I use a boundary offset of 0, let's go ahead and calculate that. Dump. And we'll reset the preview. Well, actually, this is not a good example because I think I said selected vector. All right, well, let's go with model boundary. And I got 0 boundary offset. We'll calculate that. And now we see what it's going to carve. It's not going out here anywhere, which is fine, I guess. We're going to preview that. And we'll let it go down. So let's carve this down here. Michael says paying the bills are a stumper. Yeah, he's again, Michael doesn't let any grass grow under his feet. He is always out there doing something. He's a worker, believe me. Okay, now it's just carved right at the model boundary. Okay? It's not gone out here. So the next bit that comes in is our finishing bits. We're not going to have any boundary offset out here either. And we're going to calculate. It's going to take a couple seconds here. Come on, calculate. There you go. Okay, now turn off that one there. With no boundary offset, let's go down here and look at it straight from the front. We see where it's going to plunge in and where it's going to start carving. If I look up here, look at what that bit's going to do. Oh, I did it again. I don't want to go to the selected vector. I want to go to the model boundary. There we go. Now I got to recalculate that. Sorry. Let's get here. All right. So now we can see there. That bit's going to start plunging right here. Now, because it's going to plunge real deep, let's go ahead and start previewing that one. Let me stop. Oops. Let me stop. Now look at what it had to do. It had to come plunge down here to this depth. I'm going to go ahead and let it run. It had to plunge down to this depth, but I've got all this material right here that's uncut. Okay? So if I back out and I take a look at it this way, you can see how deep that had to plunge. Well, it's going to depend on how long that bit is. But I risk my collet or my collet nut hitting this because I didn't carve this away by not using the boundary offset. If I use a boundary offset or that selected vector, I can carve this material away. So when this bit plunges down to cut this, I don't risk my collet or collet nut hitting this surface because this surface is now way back over here somewhere. That's one reason. The other reason is, take a look down here where this is carved. I've got this huge radius here. That may or may not look good. I can fix that with my profile toolpath when I go to cut this out. I can clean that up. But again, now, when I create my profile toolpath to come over here and cut this out, depending on how long the bit is, because I haven't machined any of this away, I now risk the collet or the collet nut hitting here when it's plunging deep enough to cut all the way through this. It just depends on the length of my bit. So Basically put, Marie, a boundary offset is used to carve away this material so it avoids any conflict down in here. Now, that's perfectly legit. You could probably, depending upon which bit you use to cut this out, you could probably make that work. Especially if I use my 1/2 inch diameter bit, because it's got a 2-inch cutting depth. So I could make that work. Let's turn on the vectors here and see what we have. Yeah, okay. So I can close my preview. Close it. Marie's asking, how do you know how big of an offset? I use an offset that is equal to the diameter of the largest bit I'm using. That's the very minimum. That's the very minimum. You can use anything above the diameter of the tool, the biggest tool you're using. So in the case of my finishing tool path, the biggest bit I'm using is 1/8 of an inch. So the boundary offset is 1/8 of an inch. In my roughing tool path, I'm using a 1/4 inch bit. So my boundary is 1/4 of an inch. It can be more. It could be 3/4 of an inch. It could be 1 inch. All that I'm doing is I'm carving away material out here, away from the model. And again, the project is going to determine how big of an offset to use. Okay. Now, let's go back to the top here. Oh, I'm not going to go back to the top. I'm going to select that vector right there. I'm going to do a profile toolpath, cutting to the depth of my material. I'm going to select my 1/2 inch end mill because I know it'll work through that. Edit the passes. I'm going to do it in 2 passes because I know that bit and my machine can handle it. Set passes. And we'll cut into the outside. I would do a separate last pass with an allowance 0.01. If this is something folks want to go through and discuss how to do this, what this is for, I'm willing to make it a separate video on its own. I'm going to add a ramp, a smooth ramp, meaning my bit's not going to plunge straight down. It's going to ease its way in. 2 inches, I think that's fine for a ramp rather. I'm going to call this cutout. And we'll calculate it. If I need to make any adjustments, I can do that. And we'll preview it. And I need to tighten that up. I need to bring that in. I can go do that. I need to tighten that up. I don't want that ridge there. So I need to bring that in a little bit. I'm going to say, let's try 50 thousandths. Let's see. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an allowance offset. I need to bring it in. So that's going to be a positive number. Let's try 0.05. And again, these are 2 different things. If there's enough interest, I will go into separate last pass and allowance offsets. If there's any interest, I'm going to leave everything else alone. We're going to calculate, and we're going to see, reset the preview. Now I'm going to go into my 2D view, and I'm going to take a look at what this is going to look like. This is another tip. When you're in the 2D view and you have a tool path calculated, and you have a check mark out here, the tool path is drawn. We have 2 different ways we can look at what that tool path is actually going to cut. Right now we're looking at it wireframe. Now We're going to look at it solid, and that's using this icon right here. Toggle toolpath, 2D drawing style, wireframe, or solid. Right now we're looking at wireframe. That's solid. This is showing me exactly what the blue is, where that bit's going to cut. Now, I used a positive allowance offset. That was a mistake. It should have been a negative. So, go cut out, and my allowance offset, I'm going to make that a negative number. Okay, so now I'm going to recalculate. Boink. Go back into the 2D view. We're looking at solid, and now I can see that that bit's going to cut right up to the edge. So 50 thou was the right amount. So now I go back into the 3D view here in the preview, and I can look at this and this. That's good enough. I don't need to look at that. I can look at these two because the finish isn't going to have anything to do out here. And let's preview those visible toolpaths and see how this works. We've got a good discussion going out here. Okay, Michael says that would be a good video. I do have a video on using the separate last pass. It is one of the absolute beginner series. But again, I've got over 700 videos on my channel. I don't remember if I've up to 750 or if I'm sneaking up on 750. But the point in that is a lot of these were using, like, some of my first videos were VCarve 8.0, VCarve Pro 8.0. We have gone way, way beyond that. So, yeah. My channel could use some updating. So, I think I will do another video on separate last pass. And I don't think I have ever discussed allowance offsets. But, yeah. And yes, Michael's, I'm not trying to give away anything. Michael's email is also in the About section on his page. So, on his YouTube channel, that is. So, okay, let's take a look at this and make sure that we did it right. And double click, let's zoom in. Still a little bit of a ridge there, but I can do that with the allowance offset. I can make that up. Maybe 50 thou wasn't enough. Well, without going through and recalculating all of this to get rid of that ridge, you get the idea. We can do a lot with allowance offsets, but we can also do a lot with machining limit boundaries. Okay? So that's the gist of using the different machining limit boundaries. And again, the project is going to dictate which one you use. There is no cut and dried answer. Most of the time when I'm using a roughing or a finishing toolpath, I'm either going to go with selected vector, or I'm going to use the model boundary with a decent boundary offset. There is no specific one-size-fits-all answer. The project is going to determine it. And how do you know which one to use? Well, you don't. Basically, that's what the preview is for. Preview them, but keep those things in mind. If you add a zero plane, that is part of the model. So using a zero plane is going to be the same thing as cutting the whole entire piece of material. If you use the material boundary. You got to think about where you're going to set your Z0 for the next tool. You've also got to think about how you're going to mount your material. Preview them, reset the preview, and change them. The project will tell you what you have to do and how you have to do it. And that's the same with virtually anything. The project will tell you how to do it. You just have to be able to read the signs that it's trying to tell you. Now, fun way, I am just absolutely not even going to attempt to read this name, has a question about cutting allowance in toolpath settings when inlaying versus straight pocketing. Do both cut the allowance on the edges, or does the pocket toolpath cut the bottom of the pocket? Okay, talking about an allowance offset, the toolpath allowance. Where is it? There it is, pocket allowance, here. That doesn't have anything to do with the bottom of the pocket. That is set up here. A pocket depth is going to stay the same no matter what you do out here on the pocket allowance. Much like what I just showed with the profile toolpath, the pocket allowance is the same as the allowance offset in a profile toolpath. It's going to make it cut inside that vector or outside that vector. It doesn't have anything to do with the depth. All of that is set up here with either the start depth or the cut depth. I hope that helps, and I'm sorry it took so long to get to that. But it doesn't matter whether you're doing an inlay or just straight pocketing when you're using the pocket toolpath. This allowance down here will not change the depth. It only changes whether it cuts inside that vector or outside of that vector. So I hope that helps you there. So I think what we'll do, are there any other questions about anything that I have talked about? Jack in the shop says, sorry, I had a Wednesday flashback. I see what's going on out here, you guys. I kind of started something on Garrett's, I kind of started something on Garrett's channel, IDC Woodcraft, their Wednesday evening CNC get together, where Garrett, he has somebody behind the scenes, Julianne, who handles stuff in the chat. She welcomes people. And if Garrett needs a link to something, she's the person who puts that link in there. And there was one particular day, we don't need to be seeing this here, we can put me back in. There was one day where it seemed like every 30 seconds he was asking her to find a link or post something or do something like that. So I said, you know what, this is like a drinking game. We should take a drink every time he asks Julianne to do something. And it was just a little fun. Well, they've taken it to the nth degree, and now every time he asks Julianne or Liberty to do something, somebody in the chat's going to go, drink, you know. So it just kind of became a thing, and I never meant for it to happen. It just kind of evolved. So now Jack is saying, it was Jeff Kilroy. Every time Mark has Steve post a link, we should drink. The only problem with that, Jeff, is I don't ask Steve to do it. He just does it on his own. He just does it on his own. And that's what I appreciate about Steve. I don't ask him to do a thing. He's just right there. So anyway, appreciate you, Jack. I mean, I like to have fun with this. And You guys want to have fun in the chat? Have a blast. I mean, that's fine. Let's see here. 8th Center says, last time I was on Garrett's live, it wasn't even 6 minutes in before he went on his selling spiels. You have to understand, Garrett runs a business. His business is selling bits, possibly selling files. It's selling tools. That's his business. Is he a little bit more, let's say, transparent about that fact? Yeah. That's what his business is. He's got to put food on the table and he's got to pay employees. And it's not a one-person show. He does that a lot more aggressively than I do. I don't sell stuff. I mean, I have merchandise that's out there and, if you want to order it, you can order it. I don't talk about it because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to answer questions, So, I can kind of agree with you, 8th Center, because I don't like to be preached at. And I don't like to be sold something. I want to buy it. I don't want it to be sold to me. I get it. I understand. I give him a little bit of space because I also understand that's how he puts food on the table. And that's also how he makes such big donations to the charities he gives to. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, there's a personal thing there for him. That's why he donates to him. It's personal for me as well. We both have had nieces that were saved by that hospital. So he makes, I'm talking 5-digit donations to St. Jude's and a couple of other charities that are similar. He can't do that unless he sells. And so he gets a lot of leeway with me. But I do understand. I really do. And that's why I don't sell. That's why I don't market. I figure I give people the option. If you want to buy a t-shirt from me, you'll buy a t-shirt. If you don't, there's nothing I can say that's going to change that. So I give folks options, and that's it. The only thing I do push, nice segue. The only thing I do push, the only thing I do advertise is channel memberships, because I have assembled completely unwittingly. This was their doing, not mine. My channel members are some of the finest people you're going to meet online. And I really would like to see people become a part of that. And I do push channel memberships because I think that it is, I think I can give value there. I do also, hey, is Steve. I also push Steve. And he's asked me to kind of tone it down a little bit because he's getting busy. But I think, there's always room for more. So I push Steve. He's a friend. And he runs a small business. And I think we need more people pushing small businesses. And I think we need more people pushing the people who support this community. I could go with some big company to handle my website, and I'd never have to look at it. But I don't want to deal with corporate world. I want to deal with somebody who supports this community. Steve does a lot behind the scenes that folks never see, both with his labor and monetarily. He does a lot for a lot of people who are just starting and trying to make it. I like to associate with Garrett and promote Garrett because Garrett is a part of this community. Yeah, he does sell, he does advertise his products, but he also supports people. He has spent hours on the phone helping people work through their project. He has done one-on-one sessions behind the scenes with folks who are trying to learn how to do things. His Wednesday live streams are there to answer questions as well as sell his products. So I like to support the people who support the community, because are you going to get that? Are you going to get that from somebody at Amana Tool or Tools Today? No, you're not. They want to sell you a bit. They don't care how you use it, and they don't care if your business works or not. They really don't. You're not going to get that from Speed Tool. You're not going to get that from Amazon. But if you talk to Cody over at Cadence Manufacture and Design about one of his Jenny bits, he's willing to talk to you about it. You want to talk to Garrett about his Beast or his Badger, he'll talk to you about it. You're not going to get that out of Amana or Whiteside or Vortex Tool or CMT. So I try to support the people that support the community. Steve is one of those people. The level of support he gives to folks who are just starting out and who know absolutely nothing about websites or the maker community at large or various different live streams and live streaming, Steve will help you. Steve will talk to you. He'll work with you. And he'll become a friend. I mean, there's some people here in the chat who will echo that sentiment. Okay? So, yeah, I kind of give Garrett a pass, because I think if you compare Garrett to like I can't remember the name of the gentleman who works with Amana, who is collaborating with Amana. If you were to talk to Garrett or get a hold of him and just say, hey, I'm in the area, I'd like to drive by your shop, Garrett will welcome you. I can't say the same thing for Amana Tool. Will they let you come in and just shake hands and talk with you, walk around and give you a tour of the area? So, you know, I try to support the people that support the community. But again, it's not for everybody. Same with me. I'm not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. My main focus with this is trying to show people that none of this is over your head, that you can do this. There are no secrets. There is no magic. Look, there's nothing special about me. I'm a guy in the shed. That's all. Literally. I take out the trash the same as the rest of you guys. I tie my shoes the same as the rest of you guys. My staff is me. So my main focus here is to show you that if I can do this, you certainly can do this. If you're willing to take the time to sit down and actually use the software. If you have to replay these videos, fine. But if you've got the dedication to sit down and actually work with the software, you can do this. There's no reason why you can't do this. Yeah, but your shed has a mini split in it. Well, it didn't when I first started. I was using space heaters and an in-room air conditioner. So, you know. No, I do not have hats up at the moment. I am, I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out which hats I want to go with. I hate trucker hats. I like dad caps. I prefer, I don't like the mesh on the back. I guess it's not about me. You can pick your style. I need to get into the store and get that fixed. So, okay. Let's see. And women are welcome. Everybody's welcome. I don't care who you are. I really don't care who you are. You know, if you want to sit down and learn this, you're welcome here. I don't care who you are. So, you know, I've never understood that mindset where some people want to exclude others. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. I married I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed. And this is kind of getting on the personal side. And, I understand it's not for everybody. And if, have a nice day if this isn't for you. I get it. But I was fortunate enough to meet the woman of my dreams. I met and married her while we were both soldiers in the U.S. Army. We were both helicopter mechanics. We had a mutual friend that kind of introduced us. We got together, and 37 years ago, we got married, coming up on 38 years. Um, I understand women in non traditional roles. I understand somebody who grabs a toolbox, heads out onto the flight line, and starts wrenching on a helicopter. I married one of those people. It didn't matter to me that she was a mechanic. It didn't matter to me that she was the only uh, woman sometimes in a battalion of 275 men. It didn't matter to me. It didn't bother me. Um, so if somebody who is 14 or 15 wants to learn this software, they're welcome. If someone, male, female, I really don't care. Uh, all of these things are just off to the side. They're important, but not in this context. One of the reasons why, for instance, I interviewed Liberty from IDC Woodcraft was because I was excited to see somebody younger. Had nothing to do with the fact that she was a woman. Had everything to do with the fact that she is younger. I'm big with the 55 and older crowd, but my smallest demographic watching my channel are younger folks because they just don't relate to me. And I understand it. I get it. I mean, I've got a grandchild that's he's very close to turning 30 years old. It freaks me out. Trust me, it freaks me out. But he ain't far from 30. But folks of that generation just don't identify with me because I'm grandpa material. And that's fine. And that's why I was excited to see her getting into this. Because we got somebody younger that's excited about working in this hobby or business, whichever you choose to make it. So it's important to me that everybody know that they can do this, that they can succeed with this. Why does that freak me out? Because I'm not yet willing to admit to myself that I'm old enough to have a grandchild that's 30 years old. Inside my head, I'm still 19. My body is 64. But I refuse to grown up because I'll be honest with you, I don't like grown-ups. So I refuse to grow up here. I know have to grow up body-wise. But, you know, having kids in their 40s and 50s is one thing. Having grandkids in their 30s is quite another. But that's, that all this is enough about me. I don't like to talk about this. There are links in the description if you want to buy merch. Go ahead and get the merch. I don't push it. I don't talk about it. If you want it, I give you the option. I will work on the baseball caps, though. I'll be honest, I was trying to look for styles that I like. I think what I'll do is I'll start thinking about what you like. And if you want a trucker hat, I'll offer it. If you want a dad cap, I'll offer it. So that's something I got to do today. Let's see here. Channel members. And again, I do push channel memberships because I absolutely love my channel members. Some of these folks are as close as some of my family. Some are closer. We have a great group of folks. Tomorrow is going to be kind of a little bit of I don't know what we're going to do. That's simply because one of the channel members who was going to work with me on a project, he's got something else going on. And now I have to kind of tap dance my way into figuring out what we're going to do tomorrow. So it's going to be a surprise. So if you tune in, remember to check the membership/posts tab on my YouTube channel. There you'll find a link to tomorrow's live stream. Tomorrow evening, we are starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be our regular scheduled time for the members only live stream. We may go longer than 2 hours. We may go all night. Who knows? Anyway, uh-oh. One of my channel members, Ellen, says, I'm sure I can come up with something. Oh, I know you can. I have no doubt in my mind. I got faith in you. Yes, we did finish the spoons, and the verdict was, no. You can do spoons all day long. I'm not going there. Anyhow, and I'll get you for that, Rich. See, this is the kind of thing we have. All these names you see in green out here with a little star next to their name, they're all channel members. They're a great group of folks. We'd love to have you join. If you don't know what I'm talking about, right down below this video panel, you'll see join. There's a join button down there somewhere. Click that join button. You're not joining anything. You're just getting information. There's no obligation. A panel will pop up and a video play will tell you all about channel membership. Okay. Again, we've got a great group of folks. You can be involved in our super secret Facebook group. You can be involved in our super secret messenger chat. You can be added to our WhatsApp group. We've got people from all around the world joining us and just having a great time. And this is the kind of thing we're talking about. We have a private chat going on right now as we speak. We have Zoom call BS sessions where we talk about everything from what we did for a living to barbecue to CNC. We work on models together. We work on files together. It's a great group of folks. There are no egos involved. No question is considered stupid, and nobody is excluded. Come on in. If you're willing to work with the software or just want a group of folks to hang out, these are the finest folks I've ever been blessed to meet. So next week, I think what I'll do next week, let's bring it back over here. I think what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to start talking about separate last pass, an allowance offset, and because it was brought up, I will also talk about the pocket allowance on the pocket toolpath. So we'll get into that next week. We'll talk about those things. As far as edited videos are concerned, I'm almost ready to do. I think I'm going to give it a shot. But any edited videos won't come out until after the new year. This is the Christmas season, and traditionally I go on hiatus during the holiday season because I have stuff I got to do too, and I don't have time to do videos. So when we do this, yeah, it'll be after the new year. Thank you, folks, for subscribing. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me, especially on this long Thanksgiving weekend here in the U.S. I appreciate you spending part of your Sunday with me. I appreciate your comments, your questions, your concerns. See, I don't think I need to link anything. If you have any comments, any questions, I get ideas from you guys. If there's something you want to see, let me know. Leave a comment down here. You don't have to email me. You can leave a comment on these videos. I read every single comment that comes in, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. I don't have time to answer every one of them, but I do read them. This has never been about me. It's always been about you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday. And go enjoy family, especially the ones you can't be with right now. Somebody out there is feeling a little low, and they'd love to hear from you. So reach out to your friends and family and have a great day.